Thank you again for joining me for another day text. Today is Friday, April 5th, and we are working our way through the letter of James. We do these day texts to consider books, primarily from the Bible, books and letters, documents, but also other related texts and histories that help us to better our understanding of the world in which we live and worlds which existed before ours, so that we can learn from them and apply the things that we learn in our lives and better our environment and the people around us. So we're in the 4th chapter of James, and I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 4, and then I will make a brief application, give a couple updates about this weekend show, and we'll be on our way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I'll read either directly through or I will stop at certain points, if appropriate, to make a brief application and then continue reading the rest of the text. So we're reading verses 1 through 4. Good morning, everyone. And here's what it says. This is James. He's writing primarily to the brothers taking the lead at that time, but everything written would apply to every individual member of the congregation outside of the roles that were specific to people at that time according to the culture in which they lived. All right, so let's keep that in mind and let's consider these texts, 1 through 4 of chapter 4. From what source are there conflicts? And from what source are there fights among you? Is it not from this source, your strong desires for pleasure, which are waging war in the various parts of your body? Verse 2, you are lusting for others, and yet you do not have them or marry them. Remember, marriage in the Bible is simply the taking of another person to live with you. It's not always an official ceremony. There are times, there are weddings, there are receptions. Even Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding, but it's not required to have this formal official ceremony. Taking someone or marrying them is bringing them to your home and living with them, as a family. And so he's talking about in verse 2, desiring all these other, well, at least one other person, but other people, it's plural, others, but not taking them in as part of your family. So basically just using them for pleasure and not really taking care of people in ways that would lead to peace versus fights. So let's keep this thought in mind as we proceed with the rest of verse 2. You murder and you are jealous of others, and yet you are not able to get what you want. In other words, you do all these things, these terrible things, and you still don't end up with what you want. The last part of verse 2, you fight and you wage war, yet you do not win because you do not ask. Remember what Jesus says, ask and you will receive. They don't trust in Jah. We sometimes lose our way and don't trust in Jah, and we start doing these things, thinking we have to murder, we have to be jealous, we have to fight in order to get what we want. It's not true. Sometimes we have to fight to survive, but you usually don't get what you want beyond that. Okay, let's get to verse 3. When you are asking, you do not receive because you're asking for the wrong reason. Namely, that you may spend money on your strong desires for pleasure. So it's not so much just this issue of having money and spending it on some things that are pleasurable. It's this constant desire, really, for pleasure as a result of taking advantage of other people, whether it's murdering, lusting after them without really taking care of them, fighting and waging war, not asking Jah, all these things that people can end up doing, even Christians. And yet we know, everybody knows, that it's the Father, it's Jah, who gave us everything in the first place. So why are we asking everybody else for all these things or trying to take them on our own versus asking Jah for what we need. I cannot think of one time that I've ever really asked for something that was good and that I needed and that was appropriate according to the text and other examples, and I didn't get it. I can't think of one time. So I don't know about your own personal circumstances, but it's when I ask for the right things for the right reasons, I can't think of any time I've been disappointed or failed to receive the things that were necessary to properly deal with what I was involved with. All right, we'll get to some of the comments. We'll get to the rest of the text first. So verse 4, unfaithful people, remember he's addressing those who do these things, even among the congregation, because you have new ones, you have people still learning. Not everyone's perfect. These things happen. So we have to be able to tolerate each other and write like James does and says, listen, you may be unfaithful, you're not doing the right things, but haven't you learned the love of the world, verse 4, is a hatred of God? Accordingly, whoever should desire to be a friend of the world is set up as an enemy of God. And this is a very important text here. And of course, if you've been a part of the Watchtower Society, you heard it a lot. And we try to stay apart from bad things in the world, no matter what group we're a part of. But the Watchtower Society uses this a lot to keep people away from anything. And in some ways, it may assist people in staying clear from what is truly bad, but it also can be very confining in ways that do not allow people to exercise their full faith apart from laws, rules and regulations of a group. Really, we don't need more than this text, right? Do you need the Watchtower or anybody else to tell you what this text is saying? It's pretty clear to me. So let's just go back to verse 1 for a moment and review a couple of things. We're talking about sources of conflict, right? He's addressing problems with some of the people in the congregation who have these conflicts. What's the source of the conflict? They want pleasure. They want to pleasure themselves, like we all enjoy pleasure, but this desire, see, look at the second part of verse 1, your strong desires. It was a very powerful desire many of these people had, in spite of the fact that they were also showing signs of wanting to be a Christian. And so you get in these situations where you can recognize the desire, the need to please God, and you can recognize the things that Jesus did and taught and accept him and want to follow him, and yet still have these same things. This is very normal, very, very common to people because of who we are and how we were made and eventually how we developed through our first human family. But it doesn't mean we have to succumb to these strong desires and then continue to have these conflicts. Because if we're lusting after people without taking care of them, verse 2, that's not going to work. We're just going to be using them to satisfy our physical desire without really caring for them in the ways that matter. And pleasuring ourselves at other people's expense is not something that really matters. It's not an enduring quality of love. And that's why it leads to fights and conflicts, because people can tell. People can tell when they're being loved or when they're being used. And when they're being used, they don't like it. We don't like it. And it starts conflicts, right? It starts fights because we don't appreciate things other people are doing towards us, and we know the way it should be done more correctly is not being done, so it leads to these problems. And then when we end up asking for things that we do want, sometimes our strong desires for pleasures get in the way. Having pleasure is very important for humans because we were designed that way. We're physical creatures, and especially humans because we were made to be very sensitive and loving, not to fight and hurt other people the way we often do. But because the world is so tempting, when I say the world, I mean all the constructions, all the erections, really, that have been built up upon the earth and in which humans can find some measure of pleasure with other humans or through various involvements with inventions that people have made. So the world has been constructed on top of the earth, really. That's what the world is. It's the constructions of humans on top of the earth that create this new condition, this new environment in which people can live, can visit cities and structures and go into these various buildings and places for different forms of pleasure. So the world constructed on top of the earth, all the buildings, all the structures, and everything that exists in order to create the conditions that you can experience in addition to the world that Jah made. Okay, so there's the world that Jah made, the earth, and all the things in it and on it, and then there is the world of humans constructed on top of the earth that Jah made, that we then use in place of the actual earth in order to do certain things, primarily, or one of which in large part is to be pleasured. So why is that? Why is pursuing pleasure something that creates enmity, hatred between God and you? Because Jah made the world the way that we see it apart from the constructions of humans. Jah made all of the places on the earth for us to live in and to exist in and to cultivate in a way that glorifies him and should lead to conditions where humans can exist in peace. We don't have that today. We have a world set up in division, really, with all these different countries and states and the various militaries and services. So the world is set up in a way completely different from how Jah made it. Jah did not make the earth to be this place where all of these different people were divided from each other and then created their own separate war machines in order to either influence or protect themselves from other humans. None of that is in any way at all like what Jah originally intended. We can read that in the accounts in Genesis. We can look at the earth and the way that it is set up. We can look at ourselves, how we're made. So there's nothing that suggests that we were made to have this excessive amount of pleasure at other people's expense without taking care of them, in a loving arrangement, the way Jah meant. And there's no evidence that Jah intended us to be at odds with each other and fighting and waging war just so we could preserve our territory in which we would then seek as much pleasure as we can. That's not what we were made for. We were made to praise Jah. And Jah gave us the options and abilities to procreate, to cultivate the earth, to have in subjection all of the different creatures and things that he made for us, but not to be killing each other, not to be pleasuring ourselves at other people's expense. That's the opposite of what we were made for. That's why it says, if you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy of God, because everything in the world is set up in opposition to God. Not every single thing. I understand there are near homes and there are places where people meet peacefully, and these are all good things. More often, though, or in large part, the world is constructed, like I said before, with all these different things, these different pleasure centers, war fighting services, and essentially divided so that we can exist with each other in ways that are different from how Jah made us. So that's why friendship or desire to be a part of the world the way it is set up is enmity with God, or puts you at odds with God, because you end up supporting the world that is set up against Jah. Jah did not set up these things, these different cities and militaries and all the different governments and things that have divided and damaged humans since our beginning, really. So none of that has to do with Jah. Jah is allowing things to occur as a result of our choices, our bad choices, and then he's allowing what is left really to continue to function until he restores it to what it was or was supposed to be. So the world, the way it is set up, simply does not facilitate anything having to do with Jah. Really, I mean, occasionally you might hear a hallelujah, or, we do have Bibles. There are things in the world that are more available now than at times past. But in spite of that, even in spite of all that knowledge and availability of information, we still have an excessive number of pleasure centers and fighting centers, whether it's military or just sport fighting. Again, I've mentioned before, I mean, we can all appreciate the abilities of the human body and the things it can do, but come on, are we really meant to fight each other? We can't even hit another person without breaking our knuckles or damaging our hands, and we just have nothing at all that lends itself to actual physical fighting and conflict. That's why we have to add all these things: gloves, pads. We're just in no way made for that level of conflict. And so when we have to get into conflict, we have to build all these massive weapons, tanks, guns, and we just don't have it. Jah knew he did not give us any of those things. We gave them to ourselves. And we've been doing bad things with them ever since. So that's why friendship with the world is enmity with God. Because the world has set up all of these different things that have nothing to do with God or the way he made us. So they're really trying to make us into something totally different. And today it's going even beyond just excessive pleasure and fighting, conflict, murder, jealousy. We're now getting into the realm where we can't even properly identify genders, even though to me it's pretty easy. Or people have excessive confusion over our physiology and the proper way to have sexual relations. These are not complicated things, is what I'm getting at. Yet we have complicated them to the point, like with war and weapons, where it clearly does not match how we were made. It's a conflict with Jah. Jah did not make us for these strong, excessive pleasures at other people's expense. Jah did not make us to go and fight and wage war and build all these weapons and cities and divide humankind. Jah did not make us to create all of these different things that in no way show honor to him. He didn't make us to create all of these disgusting forms of entertainment that regularly promote death and demeaning aspects of human life. That's why I do the Hollywood garbage dumps. It's part of that. I like a decent movie like anyone else, but how does anyone know where they are anymore? Because I can't find them. There's just the entertainment field has been saturated with garbage. It's essentially, what was that one thing? I don't know. Did you ever see? I don't know if any of you ever watched that show. It was kind of like a puppet show, Fraggle Rock. Did you ever watch that show, Fraggle Rock, when you were growing up? And there's this in the show, they have this one like this living pile of garbage, and she's like an oracle to the Fraggles. They're like these little little creatures that live in caves. Oh, it was a funny little show. And but they would go to this this living garbage, this living trash dump, and she would tell them, this special knowledge and things. And so the world today is like created this living garbage dump, this living sack of trash, and everybody goes to it, whether it's a movie or some form of entertainment that's garbage. And they just they're like the Fraggles that go to this living trash and to get their advice. It's terrible. But like I say, I like good movies like anyone else. I enjoy them. The garbage dumps have been very, very draining on me. That's why I've taken a break. I can't sit there and just analyze even these trailers, because the trailers are just, they have an effect on your mind, and they're just not healthy for you. I can't imagine watching some of these movies. Man. So be careful in those respects. The world is not here to help you have faith. The world is not here to give you a movie or a song or a video that tells you go praise Jah. Follow Jesus. It's very clear he's the Messiah. All evidence points to it. Treat others the way you want to be treated. You won't be a hypocrite. Fair measure. And is the world telling us that? No. They tell us all the opposite things. They tell us how to treat people unfairly. They tell us how to blaspheme Jesus and in his place put a bunch of goats. The Baphomet. All these dumb things that have nothing to do with anything honorable or holy. Again, we're in the realm of garbage and trash, because those things have nothing to do with love or real peace. They just blaspheme things that are holy, and in their place put garbage. Put a trashy idol or image. And what did Jesus said? When he arrives, what's he going to do? He's going to put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Why do you think he said that? Why are these goats everywhere? Maybe we should start recognizing that we have an excessive number of people promoting goatism, goatness. And so they're basically identifying themselves, right? We don't have to do it. They're doing it. I don't even think Jesus will have to do it when he gets here. They're already there. We just have to put them on the, I guess he'd have to put them on the left, right? You don't have to identify them. They're doing it themselves. Okay, you goats over here on the left. Yes, you, I can see you're wearing the Baphomet shirt. And the right side people over here. You know, he's basically letting us choose. And people are choosing. So when you see somebody in the world choosing these things and not promoting Jah, and then you choose to be a friend of that person, well, which is it going to be? Are you going to want to be a friend of that person and join the goats on the left when Jesus comes? Or are you going to tell the goat person, listen, that's dumb. You should not be promoting goat worship. You should be promoting Jah worship. The goats didn't make us. No goat God made us. Jah made us. And Jesus saved us. And then, apart from either one of those two, treating others the way we want to be treated is the right thing to do. Not acting selfish and hurting other people just because you want another moment of pleasure in your body. When just living and breathing is pleasurable, you do not need an excessive amount of pleasure every moment or even often, and especially not at other people's expense. And whatever you do, try not to pleasure yourself with those who've set themselves up as enemies of the God who made us. That's dumb times dumb. I don't even know what the word would be, but you know what I mean. Don't do it. Do not follow after these people. They're showing you exactly where they're going. Follow Jah, trust in Jesus, and help other people. Love them. If you lust after them, take them into your home. Love each other. And praise Jah and help other people. That's easy. You can do it. And it doesn't require much else than a desire to act. It's not like we need to create a whole bunch of things in order to love Jah and help other people, right? No, we don't need to do that. You only need to do that if you're going to do the non-Jah things like fighting and going after excessive pleasure. Then you need to build up all these different things. And it takes your focus away from what we're supposed to do, what we were made to do. Praise Jah. Okay, so today's Friday. Now, we have an open session on Sunday. We're going to talk all about Jesus and the Passover celebration and what he instituted there with the bread and the wine, the new covenant, what that means for all of us and all of humanity. Now, I'm trying to think of what I should do for Saturdays. I'm thinking maybe I'll just do another day text, right? It's another day text. Why not just do Saturday, at least for now? until until I can come up with, or there's someone has an idea of a way that we could add something else. I don't see why we couldn't do another day text. So let's see. Is that still a good time in the morning? Saturday morning, day text, 5:30. People like to sleep in. I know Benzie, Roy, and Betsy, or others around the world, they're just getting close to going to sleep. So let me think about this. What would be a good time? Maybe 7? That's still a little early for people in the West Coast if they've been working hard all week, but you can always watch the video. I think preliminarily to try to do it in a way that is convenient for people around the world. Maybe I'll do 6 o'clock. All right, I'll try something new tomorrow. I'm going to do a day text on Saturday, 6 a.m. I better write this down. 6 a.m. I'll set it up as soon as I'm done here because I'm just coming up with this idea. I hadn't really developed, a plan for Saturday. I'm still trying to integrate my work schedule with all these videos. The weekday day text work most of the time. Sunday seems like a good day for the open session, CW Jaw Talks. So while I still have a fairly busy work schedule, I have to keep some time to myself, but I can do day text, no problem. Keep us going through the Bible. So I'm going to try that. Tomorrow I'm going to try a day text on Saturday, see how that works for everybody. 6 o'clock a.m. so that we can try to accommodate people. And again, this is like a test. So tomorrow I'll put it up here. After I'm done, I'll put up a day text so people are reminded. We'll see how the Saturday day texts go. Sunday, 8:30, open session. I wonder if I should move that to 8 to try to give people more time. I think it's working so far at 8:30. We'll keep it there for now. Okay, I'll try to create a more stable schedule as well. But more or less, we meet every weekday morning at 5 a.m. to go over these day texts, and then we'll start doing Saturdays, 6 a.m. for day texts. And then we'll keep Sunday for our open session CW Jaw Talk. I'm committed to getting at least 1, maybe 2 Hollywood garbage dumps up today or this weekend. The Toy Story 4 one is pretty much done. Just need to go through it and edit it. And then I want to do one on the Unicorn Store. We've got another Shazam trailer, all kinds of stuff. But I don't want to chase after the garbage, right? I know it's there and we have to do it to, show people what's happening. But I want to pursue these things. I want to develop the things we were talking about in opposition to the world, even though we have to live in it and work with people. That's not the point. We just don't want to become friends with those who are enemies of our God. That's not a good thing. We can work with them, try to help them. We know everyone gets confused or are confused at times. Some are intentionally bad. We got to watch out for them. But trust in Jah. Ask. Ask and you will receive. Do not ask for the wrong reason, not for excessive pleasure. A little bit of pleasure is okay, but try to moderate it so you don't get caught in this pursuit of pleasure. It's pleasurable just breathing. I have a good time no matter what I do. So, if you're not happy, maybe it's you and something you need to change or adjust in your attitude so that you have a happier disposition and you're not constantly seeking pleasure to try to alleviate the disposition that you've adopted or make it better. Adopt a better disposition, and then your choices and actions will follow from it. And they will be less likely to become obsessed toward this pursuit of pleasure in ways that do not ultimately lead to the kind of fulfillment we were made to experience. Jah wants us to have pleasure. Look at how we're made. But he doesn't want us to have pain with the pleasure. That's what the world offers you. Pain plus pleasure. Not Jah. Just love and pleasure. Peace and unity. But we're in a world where that's not set up to be promoted. So it doesn't take on the way it will when we get to the new earth. Okay, so that's some good information for us. And I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. I'm going to be busy doing different things. I've got some work, and then I've got the garbage dumps. I've got some clips I still need to put up from different shows. And then open session. Sunday, all about the Passover celebration and Jesus' use of it to institute the new covenant for a kingdom that will bring about God's will for the earth.